Hello and welcome to the webinar Grant Guidance to Help You Get Federal Funding. Today is May 7th, and this session is part of the NEMSIS monthly training series. We're really happy today to have Casey Gregor and Lauri Lunde from the NEMSIS TAC, and we also have a special guest that I'm going to go ahead and let Lauri introduce. In this session, what we're going to be doing is diving into a range of funding opportunities available in the EMS sector. All our presenters are going to provide overviews of resources that you need and outline some of the steps to be able to successfully apply for these opportunities. And we're here to help you navigate through those complexities and help you support you through those initiatives. Want to thank you for joining again. And please remember to follow the NEMSIS TAC on our social media so you can get updates for these types of events. And just to let everybody know, today's meeting is going to be recorded for anyone who may want to revisit this information at a later time. But with that, I will turn the time over to Lauri, who I think is going to introduce our guest.
Sounds great. Thanks, Chris. And yes, I want to say welcome as well. Thank you for joining us today. And we are speaking on the topic of grants, which I know we have covered previously in some of our V3 calls and other presentations, but we wanted to spend a little more time today and answer questions you may have and share resources that you may or may not be aware of that are available to you. And I want to introduce first our guest today from NHTSA, and we appreciate her partnership there in the Office of EMS and NHTSA. And her name is Amy Schick, and her title is that she's currently the acting director of NHTSA's Office of Grant Management and Operations. And so we brought her as a subject matter expert today to share just a little bit from her end of what may be helpful for you to know and understand about grants that are available. So I will pass it over to you, Amy.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you, Lauri, and thank you, Chris. And good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to come and just talk to you a little bit today about grants. As Lauri mentioned, I'm from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. We're a mode within the federal U.S. Department of Transportation. So bear with me just a moment. I'm going to pull up a few slides to guide today's presentation. Okay, and I need to... Thank you for your patience. Okay, thank you. And I'm confirming that everybody can see the full slide deck.
Yep, looks perfect. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauri. So again, I just want to begin by thanking you for your service. I have some connections with the EMS community. As a sophomore in high school, my high school offered a EMT training, and then a condition of receiving EMT training, you were to volunteer at the local fire and rescue squad. So that's how I got into emergency medical services, and I had the fortune of getting my undergraduate degree in emergency health services. More recently, within the last decade plus of my career, I've moved on to different things, but I'm certainly always an advocate and proponent of EMS. So thank you for the work you do and just your support. So let's get right into it. So I want to take a few moments just to describe really the linkage between highway safety and the emergency medical service community. For us, it really begins with understanding the scope of the problem and the gravity of lives lost on our roadways every year. To really get a handle on the lives lost, the U.S. Department of Transportation issued a national roadway safety strategy in January of 2022. This is a very high-level comprehensive strategy outlining steps that we can take working together at the federal, state, and local levels to reduce the number of persons who are killed on our roadways every year. So with that, NHTSA, in the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration Office, we work very closely with highway safety offices, and I'll take a few moments during today's presentation to describe what is a highway safety offices and what are those opportunities where state and local EMS entities can collaborate with their highway safety offices. And I'll speak to some of the grants that NHTSA makes available to highway safety offices. And as a disclaimer, and I'll say this again, NHTSA is only allowed per statute to award grants directly to highway safety offices. But I'll explain the big picture, and then if you understand the requirements that a highway safety office must complete in order to apply for NHTSA grant funding, the Highway Safety Office certainly has discretion and flexibility to award toward grants to state and local EMS entities as appropriate. But it's all about collaboration and going on from there. Okay, so really quickly, the problem ID, many people don't realize that nearly 43,000 people die every year on our nation's roadways. So those can be motorists or pedestrians, bicyclists. So it's a staggering number every year. And actually, the stat that I have here is from 2021 data. We did see a very slight decrease in the number of fatalities for calendar year 2022. So this is a census of every single motor vehicle fatality that happens on our roadways. So in 2022, we had 42,514 persons who were killed on our roadways. So, a small decline of about 425 persons, but still the number is staggering, far too high. And you can see that really the role for EMS is just critical. Of these, nearly 1.5 million crashes were dispatched every year. And then a stat that often goes unreported is that at the time that the first responder arrives on the scene, approximately 40% of the persons were alive, and then they later succumbed to their injury. To be included in this 42,000 figure, a person would have to die within 30 days of their motor vehicle crash. So again, it's a staggering statistic, and there's just ample opportunity for coordination and collaboration to save lives on our roadways. Okay, so I did mention briefly the National Roadway Safety Strategy. So one area I'd like to focus today on is how the National Roadway Safety Strategy really outlined a safe system approach. And one of those key elements is post-crash care. And I'll describe in the next slide what the safe system approach is, but it really did highlight the importance of post-crash care, including EMS, just first responder efforts. So this is the safe system approach. So I'll just quickly talk through the visual here today. But really the core tenets on that, every time somebody gets in their vehicle, walks on the street, we should not accept any death and injuries on our roadways. We should have a transportation system that is safe and equitable for all. So we start by educating the users of the transportation systems, you and I, on, how to make safe driving choices. And Highway Safety Office, the offices that I work closely with at the state level, are really responsible for promoting and encouraging safe driving behaviors. That can be something as simple as wearing your seatbelt, don't drink and drive, don't text while driving, things of that nature. So that's one element. And then safer vehicles. NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, works very closely with the auto manufacturers to implement technologies on our vehicles. But we know that it takes time for a fleet to turn over. So technologies that are introduced in the 2024 make and model years of cars, it could take a decade, if not 20 plus years, to be like fully actualized throughout the population. Quickly moving through the safe system approach, there's an emphasis on safer speeds. We know that certain speeds are more appropriate for certain roadways. Safer roads, infrastructure design. One common example that we use is the roundabouts or the traffic safety circles. Oftentimes, the public typically does not like those, but they are a proven safety countermeasure for infrastructure for safer roads that reduced serious T-bone crashes. And then the portion that most pertinent to us today here is post-crash care. Again, there's all these different elements, and safe system approach. One of the other core tenets is on the fact that, people are vulnerable, people make mistakes, but there should be redundancies. And the post-crash care is really the last crucial touch point to save lives on our roadways. Okay, so that we've had a very, very 1,000-foot overview. How can we encourage collaboration among the EMS community and these highway safety offices? But doing so, let's first just to take a moment to talk about what is a highway safety office. I've never heard of this. So every state and territory has a highway safety offices. And again, the focus is on behavioral traffic safety programs. So oftentimes these offices are housed within the State Department of Transportation, but that's not always the case. In some states, we have state highway safety offices housed within the state's Departments of Public Works, or even the state's, police or patrol. So it does vary by state, but really their charge of the Highway Safety Office is behavioral safety program, messaging, for example, getting people to going the core basics of traffic safety: buckle up, drive at appropriate speeds, don't drive distraction, so forth. So within the Highway Safety Office, there is what we call a governor's representative. That's somebody who's supposed to be appointed by the state's governor to lead that office. And then, what I mentioned earlier about what a highway safety office, what they do, it's specifically laid out in statute. So Title 23 of the United States Code, really, again, just highlights what the highway safety office is supposed to do. What are their charge and what are their functions? So just emphasize again, they manage the Behavioral Highway Safety Grant Program and any federal funds associated with that, which generally speaking, NHTSA is the primary funder, a federal source of federal funds. The Highway Safety Office, furthermore, is supposed to foster meaningful public participation, engagement, and collaboration. This was a much needed emphasis that was recently rolled out in the past 2 years, where the state highway safety offices are supposed to go to the communities that they serve, get input on how to develop programs that will resonate with the drivers and road users. And then as a governor's representative, he or she is supposed to keep really the highest levels of state government informed of what is happening on their state's roadways. So again, every state has a highway safety office, and I share the link on this slide, and I believe it's going to be posted in the chat. So if you're just curious, for the state that you reside, where is my highway safety office? The website here, the Governor's Highway Safety Association, so that is discrete and independent from NHTSA. They're a membership organization that work directly with the highway safety offices, but they do have a great resource if you want to go to a particular state's particular state's highway safety office to learn, who they are, where they're housed, and contact information. Sometimes it's just as simple as that, just finding a connection, whom to reach out to, and start the discussion. So now I'm going to pivot, and I want to take just a brief moment of your time to talk about NHTSA's grant applications. So as I said at the onset, NHTSA's grants are, per statute, only allowed to be awarded directly to state highway safety offices. So that's for us, that's 57, the states, the territories, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs acting on behalf of the federally recognized tribes. So I'm going to provide a very high-level overview of what state highway safety offices have to do to apply for NHTSA formula grant funding. And then, so you'll have familiarity with that. And if you do engage with dialogue with your colleagues at the state highway safety office level, that can help you inform perhaps, if there are opportunities for collaborating with EMS on certain highway safety projects. So really probably not pertinent to the office, but I just wanted to provide an overview, again, for the State Highway Safety Office, what they have to submit to NHTSA. So they provide us a 3-year highway safety plan, or HSP. It's really a strategic plan, a roadmap, bigger picture strategies, what they want to accomplish on their roadways in terms of advancing safety in a 3-year period. They submit to NHTSA annual grant applications. Those are really the project level details. And those, if you were to have the conversations with your highway safety offices and just partner in various formats, that's where, again, the specific projects come into place. And if there's EMS type activities, that the state would submit on to NHTSA for approval. And then just for awareness, in addition to providing annual grant applications to receive funding at the onset, every state, in our case, the Highway Safety Office, does have to do an annual report, which is, what did you accomplish? How did you spend the federal funds? So this is really, again, just kind of a very, very, once again, high-level overview of the requirements for your awareness, but what is critical to NHTSA ensuring that the states provide, and ultimately, if you were to partner with a highway safety office, is it all begins with problem ID, really understanding the road safety challenges that are happening on your state or local communities, and then just making the case why grant funding is needed to, mitigate those potential issues. Mentioned briefly public participation engagement, a new but transformational requirement really to look beyond the boundaries of state and local government entities. But, how can we get feedback and input from the community in which we serve? And performance plans. So states have to tell us, based on the result of this funding that I'm applying for on a yearly basis, these are the objectives that I want to achieve. It could be, a reduction in my fatalities from, X number to, X number. But tying everything together is, at the end of the day, when the rubber hits the road, it's the countermeasure strategies. What are the activities that I'm going to implement? And then I mentioned previously the annual report. The similar connection here is just tell us your progress. Okay, so two elements I want to take just a moment more of your time to just elaborate on are the within the Triennial Highway Safety Plan. Again, that's that longer term 3-year strategic roadmap that highway safety offices submit to NHTSA for how they are going to implement their behavioral traffic safety program. So again, key element here is the problem ID, making a strong justification using all available data. It could be fatality data, but oftentimes at the community level, the numbers rightfully so, are smaller, but are there serious injury? What NEMSIS data can you use to support the highway safety problem? And really, NHTSA doesn't define what data sets need to be used, but we do ask that the state provide a very robust problem identification. Have they analyze their highway safety problems, and how could EMS for this example here today, what role can they play in the post-crash care element? And then we did just mention here recently with our reauthorization, so Congress gives us a longer term authorization. As a federal agency, we issue and implement rules. There was an added emphasis on how we can use geospatial and socio-demographic data to better help us understand the traffic safety problems that are occurring really at the local level. Okay, and just another item I wanted to elaborate a bit more on countermeasure strategy. What is a countermeasure strategy? So a countermeasure strategy could be something, for example, is like high visibility enforcement, where we work with law enforcement communities to enforce traffic safety laws. I often use throughout this presentation the example of getting motorists to buckle their seatbelt. It's a proven effective countermeasure. But the states in their application to NHTSA, and again, this would trickle down most commonly to, subgrantee applications to the State Highway Safety Office, really have to describe, starting with a problem ID, here's my problem, here's the countermeasure that I want to employ, and how are they linked together? How will my strategy ultimately result in a reduction of fatalities on our roadways and increase in lives saved? Okay, so if you're curious, so I, live in state X, and I really want to learn more about NHTSA and, what past EMS projects have been funded, and just to get a sense of what's out there, lay of the land. I encourage you to go to NHTSA.gov. We have a site where we post every state's application, which is their highway safety plans, and soon we will be posting their annual grant applications. There was just a shift in how the annual grant applications, that was new for this current federal fiscal year. But again, if you go to this site here, you'll and search by your state, you can see some states do fund EMS initiatives, whereas some don't. So that could be an opportunity if you see gaps to work with your state highway safety office moving forward. And I also wanted to take a moment at the end to talk about a Safe Streets for All discretionary grant. And full disclosure, this grant is administered by the Department of Transportation's Office of Secretary. So this is a grant that I don't work closely with, but it is a great opportunity that I wanted you to be aware of. And probably most importantly, I can share just the link here. That funding is available. There's about $3 million available to state and local entities for this grant program, really, again, designed to reduce traffic safety fatalities. So there are some upcoming deadlines, very timely. I know it's May 16th seems to be right around the corner, but I just wanted to flag this grant program for you. Again, unfortunately, I can't speak to the specifics, but just make you aware of it if you aren't already. I'm happy to connect you with persons if you have specific questions, but this is a great opportunity that we, it's within our current reauthorization. We don't know if it'll continue forward in future years. So encourage you to just take a moment to learn more about this grant opportunity and see if it would potentially be a good fit for you. And lastly, I just wanted to provide my contact information if there's anything I can do to, just answer and address questions that may arise after this presentation. I'll just pause for a moment so you have it. But that was all I had. So I know, again, that's a very quick overview of NHTSA, how we work with the state highway safety offices, and just wanting to make you aware that there is a highway safety office and there is opportunities for collaboration. But with that, I will think open it up to questions.
Yeah, and I think we had you guys on mute initially, but Chris, if you could take everyone off mute. If anyone has any questions for Amy, feel free to come off mute, ask your question, or type it in the chat if you're more comfortable with that. And I had one question, Amy, as I'm looking at this website that is the state highway safety plans, the annual reports and annual grant applications. Is every state required to have a highway safety plan? I guess is
Yes.
my question, or is that
Yes.
contingent on if they have applied for a grant?
They do. So I failed to mention, so NHTSA are formula grants. So every state historically has always applied for our grant funding. So you will see a highway safety plan and annual grant application annual report for every state.
Okay. Okay, that was my
You're good.
question. Thank you. Any other questions for Amy? All right, sounds great. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks for your
And
time.
yeah, thank you. I'm gonna pass it off next to Casey Gregor, who is a newer member of the NEMSIS TAC, and he is a business data analyst, and he's been helping us kind of collect information on grants as it comes across our desk as we hear about it and keep track of deadlines. And we regularly update a grant guidance sheet that we've created on our website. So he's going to talk about that as well and where that can be found, and just other resources that you may or may not be aware of that we'd love to connect you with today. So I'll pass it over to you, Casey.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Give me a minute to share my screen here. Make sure I get the right one. All right. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep, looks perfect.
Very good. Okay, so we're going to talk quick about Safe Streets and Roads for All grant that Amy kind of touched on a little bit. We've shared this with quite a few of our stakeholders. And this is probably the more, I don't want to say easy grant for EMS to be able to obtain funding for, but it certainly offers some leeway there, again, applying through your state. So the nearest deadline is Thursday, May 16th. There are multiple deadlines for this particular grant. I'll discuss that a little bit in a few slides here. So, all right. So purpose of this grant program is improve roadway safety by significantly reducing or eliminating roadway fatality and serious injury through safety action plan development and implementation focused on all users. Part of all users includes EMS as well. We drive rigs on the road every day, responding to calls, provides funding to develop the tools to strengthen the community's approach to safety and save lives. So grant funding is available for planning and demonstration and or implementation. So there's kind of like two stages to this. You have a planning and demonstration that you apply for the grant first. Once that's been approved, you've developed that plan, you can then apply for an implementation grant afterward. So currently provided has been about $1.7 billion through 2023 to about 1,000 different communities in the US. The grant says there's still about $3 billion in funding available through 2026. And this is available to counties and cities, towns, transit agencies, municipality planning organizations, and then federally recognized tribal governments and special districts. So this kind of would involve, as an EMS agency, partnering with maybe one of your local organizations. So partnering with your city or your county, you can maybe partner with your local law enforcement agencies, working on some traffic safety things and improving that. All right, so we'll talk about a couple of the awardees from last year. So the town of, I believe it's pronounced Colony, pardon if I have it wrong, EMS and Regional Emergency Services in New York. They received $2.4 million to develop a comprehensive safety action plan and conduct demonstration activities across 3 EMS agencies. So what they're going to do, they're piloting a vehicle transponder system, piloting a registry interface to share crash victim data with responders, which could be very beneficial for those responding to those calls. Investigation of advanced vehicle location and informatics systems to provide monitoring safety reporting while on the road and en route to emergency calls. And then also data analysis to create a pre-hospital health and safety information exchange and structured data warehouse. So that's just kind of data sharing, patient condition, kind of tracking that sort of thing. A few other notable awardees. We have the city of Richardson in Texas. They were able to obtain $320,000 to develop a safety action plan and pilot a GPS-based preemption system to reduce response times for emergency vehicles. I actually think that one's very interesting. We use preempt a lot with our traffic lights. This is the first I've heard of a GPS-based one. So I think that's really neat. And then it also helps reduce potential accidents, hopefully. City of Burlington, they were able to gain 1.176 million in federal funds for multiple activities, including establishing a framework for future deployment of signal priority and signal preemption to improve emergency service. And then Nashville, Davidson County, they gained 13 million. Part of that is to implement infrastructure and included an emergency vehicle preemption activity along a key emergency response route. So they identified a primary route that their emergency responders use, likely a very busy route, just with regular traffic. So they want to create a safer response for those responders and then the rest of the people on the road there. All right. You can go to the NHTSA website, follow the link here to watch the SS4A webinars. They have some guidance on how to apply for these grants, just general information about the grants, and then they go into some of the past plans that have been presented for funding. Here's the application deadline. So the nearest application deadline is May 16th. That's for the planning and demonstration grants, as well as implementation grants. And the May 16th, that's the last deadline for implementation grants. So those would most likely be people who had already been awarded for planning and demonstration. And now you're going for the money to fund your implementation. Next deadline for planning and demonstration is Thursday, August 29th. 2024 by 5 p.m. Eastern. And then if you follow the link in the bottom of the slide here, it'll bring you to the website to submit an application. So again, you're going to have to work with your state or some sort of local organization, county, city, to be able to apply for this grant. But there is money out there for it, and as we saw, there have been agencies awarded funds. You can also go to the NEMSIS website. So I'm just going to play this real quick video. So go to NEMSIS using EMS data, NEMSIS 101. And then you're going to scroll down to state-specific tools. And at the bottom, you'll see updated general grant application information. And then here, so this is going to list any of the NHTSA grants that we get notified about, gives some general information about them. It has links to be able to go to the NHTSA website to apply for them. And then it has some webinar links, different things such as that. Here's some other grant opportunities that are supposed to be coming about. Go ahead and, so again, you can follow these links, learn about them, see if they would be beneficial for your organization. Some of them have not been put out for funding notice yet this year, but they are proposed to. All right. And then, of course, if you have questions, feel free to contact me via email. My email address is there. You can scan the QR code. That'll take you directly to our grant information page on the NEMSIS website as well. And I'll leave that up for a couple minutes here. And then anybody have any questions regarding the SS4A grant? All right, we'll go ahead and end that. Oops. And I can stop sharing.
I just put a link to that document in the chat as well. Perfect. Thank you, Casey. Anything else you wanted to share?
I have a couple links I'm going to put in the chat for you all. There's one that will take you to the NHTSA website. It's a little bit similar to what Amy had showed toward the end of her presentation. And it'll bring you to a dashboard. It shows a map of the US. And then you can click on the different highlighted areas and it'll show you the different grants that are awarded in those areas. So in your state, in your county, you can zoom into county level, city level. And it's a pretty basic description, but you can click on it to get a little bit more information. And then I'm also going to share a link. It's a webinar that's on the NHTSA website. and it's called Leveraging DOT Grant Funds for EMS Response. I think that one will be really beneficial for people to watch, to be able to learn a little bit more about how do we get these offices to give us money, right? So I'll go throw those in the chat really quick here.
That's good. And it looks like someone said they're not able to access the link. Was that the link to the grant guidance? We can reshare that. Maybe part of it got cut off. And I want to mention too, I know Casey went over this, but it's good to know that you do not have to have a complete plan in place before applying for the Safe Streets for All grant, that initially the first year of funding really is meant to give you time and money and resources to develop a plan. And so you need to have an idea when you fill out the initial application, but then the initial funding can be to put a plan in place. And then the second step of that is to then apply for the implementation of your plan once it's been approved. So that is good to know. And I imagine too, there's probably people that all of us work with alongside or cross paths with in your different roles and different offices. And we hope that you can either share this whole webinar today. Again, this will be posted. Chris can mention that at the end, but if you want to share this or share our grant resource document or just share our email with them, we're happy to support them in any way we can. If you know others that are interested in applying for grants and resources, but maybe need a little guidance as to first steps of how to do that or who to reach out to in their state. We're happy to make those connections for you with your safety, highway safety offices. We're happy to help you find who that is or connect you with them if you're not aware. And I will pause there. Does anyone on the call have questions we could answer for you? All right, sounds good. I will pass it back to Chris. And Chris, you can close this out for today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lauri, and thank you everyone for especially thanking our speakers, Casey and Lauri, and our special guest, Amy. Thank you, such great information, and for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your insight and your guidance. We hope everybody found the session informative and empowering as you pursue your funding opportunities. And like Lauri mentioned, this webinar and others like it are available for viewing on the NEMSIS website and on our YouTube channel. And so feel free to share those resources with anyone. Yeah, also let us know things that you would like to see as a part of this series. If there is a topic that you would like us to cover, make sure that you send that in and let us know which subjects you'd like us to cover. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on our social media accounts so that you can see the latest updates for events like this one and other resources that we make available. And other than that, I just hope everyone has a great day, and we look forward to seeing you at the next session.